Hi, this is Martin and welcome to my first video tutorial. I got some requests from the pinball community to do this because of my DMD works on the Medieval Madness, the Totem and the Addams Family table. So now I want to show you how I use this editor, and I have to mention that I am not a part of the developer team, I'm only a user of this editor software. So all credits for the software go to Steve and his team. As you can hear, English is not my native language, but I will try my best to explain each step as good as I can. And even if I use some wrong words, I hope you can follow my steps. I did some audio overdubbing to make this tutorial more understandable. There might be different ways or even easier ways to work with this editor, but in this tutorial I will focus on the features that I use and show you how I use them. I work with the latest editor version. It's version 2505 and it's 64-bit. So the first thing we should do is take a look on the user interface of this editor. And I already created a folder with 2 dump files in it for the project I want to use as an example for this tutorial. So first I want to show you my configuration for this tutorial. So I go to Palettes and Modes tab and click on Configuration. We are able to change our DMD size here. I think I don't have to explain this. And also the save functions on the right. I think the Wi-Fi, you could add some Wi-Fi device there, but I did not try this yet. So next to the General tab we have the Settings tab. And it's really important to check this box, Create Bookmark After Cutting. It will save you a lot of time. And the Create Palette After Cutting or Keyframe After Cutting you could also check, but for this tutorial I will keep this unchecked. I think it's better to understand in that case. Number of planes I left at the default, what is 4 I think, and I never touch anything on this right side. After you loaded a dump file, it will be placed in the recordings window to the left. And the scenes you will cut out of this dump will be placed in the scenes window in the middle. And the keyframes that will trigger our scenes will show up in this right window. The recordings, scenes and keyframes can be sorted or deleted by using the buttons below, and you can also assign palettes to keyframes or scenes. And next to the right we have the tools for setting the keyframes. The left tab is the really important one for us. You can select the hashes here for your scenes, and you can of course also select the scene you want to be triggered by this hash. I will skip the explanation for duration or event because I never touched this yet. We have the button for a palette switch and the color scene button to add the keyframe. Fetch duration and event, like I said before, I will skip now. I don't have any experiences with that. On the right side of the user interface we have all the colorization tools. We find our palettes here. You see, these are all the default palettes for now. But Steve was so kind to put this overlay text here, so you can see what's going on. We can add palettes, rename palettes, and also delete palettes up here. And below we see the colors that belong to this palette. And we also see that the palette is divided into 4 blocks, but I will go into this later on in this tutorial. Down below we have our drawing tools, and here we can later on select our different modes, and to the right our masks. When we go down here and we see we have our timeline, we can drag it, or we can hit start and stop, or skip single frames forward and backward. I think this is the important for now, and I will show you how to start the colorization process. So the first thing you want to do is to load a recording. For that purpose we go to the drop-down menu to Scenes Recordings and choose Load Recording. and then we have to navigate to our folder, and we can select all dumps at the same time by hitting the Control key and click the Open button. So now you see the dumps popping up in the left window up here, and down here you can start the dump and play it. On some tables it can happen that the startup test recognizes an error, and that results in this dot after the credits. I will come back to this later on after I showed you some basic stuff, so let's skip this frame for now. And we move to the, let's say we move to this game over scene. This scene is just a one frame scene. That means it's just one frame we have to cut and colorize. Each frame has its own hash, or hashes, and you can see them over here next to the preview image of the frame. So after we have chosen our frame, we hit Mark Start, Mark End and Cut, and the scene will show up in the scenes window. So I'm going to rename it right now. I use the ATT in front of the name, but this is just for me to keep an overview and to make the editor sort all the attract mode scenes to the top of the list. And by the way, the editor also makes a difference if you use uppercase or lowercase letters when it comes to sorting. I will skip this credit scene again because of the dot after the credits, but I will explain something about this later on in this tutorial. And we take the Grand Champion instead. And now we do the same as before. So we have our preview window, and we can see the hashes that belong to this frame. So again, hit Mark Start and Mark End and Cut, and again rename it. So we can continue with this method and cut more scenes. For this tutorial I will cut scenes first, then show you how to colorize scenes, and then how to set the keyframes. But of course you can also mix these steps, it's totally up to you. So for now I will continue and cut some more scenes, so maybe you get a better idea of how it works. The highest scores, but I will use lowercase letters here. I have to do it here as well. It's because of the sorting later on. If you have an uppercase letter in between, it won't sort it to the position you would expect it to. Now we have the high scores. Call it just ATT high scores. So we continue with the second screen of the high scores. Also just one frame. In attract mode the most scenes are just one frame scenes. Expect of the animation scenes. So ATT high scores 2. I want to mention again that this is just my way of working with the editor. I know there are some more options, for example to create keyframes automatically after each cut, but I prefer to do this manually for this tutorial, and also for my works I never use it. Mosh Multiball Champion, I'll just call it MMC. So now I will cut some more scenes, and I think I've talked enough for this part of the tutorial. So just watch me cutting some more scenes, and in the next video I will show you how to colorize those. So enjoy some music while watching. So now after we prepared our scenes, we are able to colorize them. So we move to our colorization tools and check the palette and see that the first palette, palette 0, is selected. So we want to add a new palette. Click on New, and now you see it gives us a new number in front, the 9, followed by a minus. This is what we have to keep. It renamed the palette now, but we have to rename it to a better name. For this I will call it Game Over. And it's important to hit the rename button now, otherwise the name would not be taken over by the program. So hit rename, select the Game Over scene and hit the PAL button. So right now we assigned this palette Game Over to our scene Game Over. And you see, now we have one more palette, what is called Game Over. In this new Game Over palette, the only color that is used for this frame is this kind of pink. We can hit Ctrl and click on the pink to change the color here. Let's say we change it to red and click OK. And as soon as we skip through the scenes now, we see our changes and see that the Game Over is red now. And on the right we see our assigned palette for this scene. If we would like, for example, to work with color masks now, I will explain what this means. The only two colors that are used by this frame is the first color, the black, and the fourth color, what is red now. The first four colors until this red are the default colors of our palette Game Over. And we have 3 more color mask palettes that we can use now. And you can see the vertical lines in between them. So this is the first color mask palette, these 4 colors. And if we just click one of these colors and draw a rectangle, it will only change this red to the color at the same position in the color mask palette, what is this kind of blue. If we use this palette, it would be this color, or on this palette it would be this white. But I will show you and draw a rectangle. You see, all what was red before, now it's this kind of blue. And the ugly rectangle we see, this is because the first color of the default palette will be changed to this color. And this color, if we hit Ctrl and click on it, we see this is our rectangle we see. So now I grab this and drag it all the way to black. And we see we are fine and it looks better now. So we will do the same with the second and the third color mask. And as you can see, it works the same like before. We have the ugly rectangles and the red is replaced by the colors from the same position on each color mask. And again, to get rid of the rectangles, we just hit Ctrl, click on it and drag it all the way to black. But I want to use the red for the Game Over. So I will draw just a rectangle over the whole screen from the first default palette, and now everything is red again. So we move to the next scene, the highest scores. We do the same as before. We add a new palette, we rename it to highest scores, hit the rename button and hit the PAL button. The only colors that are used for this scene is the black for the background, so the first color here, and the pink for the text itself. So I hit Ctrl and click on it and change it to yellow and click OK. If we would like, we could also change the first color to something else, and you see it would change the background here. But I don't want that. I would just want to keep it simple like this. And right now, when we skip through the scenes, we see our changes. Now for the Grand Champion scene, I will use color masks. First, I will make a new palette again, call it GC, hit rename and hit pal. The basic color for this scene is the pink again, so I change this by hitting Control and click on it. I change it to green and click OK. And now I want a different color for the initials and a different color for the score. And since then I know it's just the last color of each mask is used, I have just to change this one. Hit Control and click it. I want to have a kind of red for the initials. So I choose this color, and now I click on the rectangle tool and I draw a color mask just over the initials till the end of the initials. And the reason for that is that the score would be different every time and it could come closer to the initials on the left. That's why we have to make sure that the first color mask ends here straight at the end of the initials. So I go to the last palette and draw a rectangle over the score. I want to divide the screen like this to be colorized in the dynamic process later. I will set the first color of the palettes to black, and it looks much better now. If I would like to change the white here to maybe blue, just hit Control, click on the white and choose a bluish color. A bit more brighter, I think. Yeah. Let's take this for now. And we see this looks much better. We don't have to create a palette for each new scene. We can also use palettes for more scenes, and the benefit is that we just have to change this one palette to apply the changes to all the scenes that are involved. For example, I like the same colors for the same purpose. For example, the initials, I would like to have them red in all scenes that will show initials. And also the score, I would like to have it blue in all scenes. That's why for this example I would use the Grand Champion palette also for the high score scenes. I just have to choose the GC palette here and hit the PAL button. So now it's assigned to the high scores. For this scene I just want to have the numbers in front to be green, and like I said before, the initials I prefer them to be red, and the score I want to make blue again. And done. So now the high scores 2, it has the same screen, just the different numbers in front. So I can hit Control C to copy this color mask, select the high scores 2 and hit Control V to paste it. And now we change the palette to the GC and hit the PAL button. Now we quickly copied this color mask to this next scene. So the Mosh Multiple Champion will also get the GC palette. Click the PAL button. I would like to have the champion text be kept in green. Oh. The initials red and the score blue. Now we can use the third palette as well. I will change this color to maybe white. And we'll just select this one. Don't like the blue there, so here we go. But I think for my taste, this could just be green. I like it more like this. Feel totally free to do it different. Again, the NBC scene seems to be the same. So we hit Ctrl C again, Ctrl V, change the palette to GC and hit PAL. And I will do the same here, just hit Ctrl V again, change the palette and hit the PAL button. Now the replay, I think it could be a difference, but we can also use the GC because I want to have the blue for the score again, the same blue. Hit the PAL button. And the replay add text, I can use this palette because it's never used in the GC yet. Just to have a variation here. But I think the white doesn't fit good to the blue, so we hit Ctrl and change the color again. By the way, down here you see all the colors, the last colors you have chosen. So this yellow is the yellow from the highest scores, if I remember right. So we just click it and click OK, and now we have the same yellow for the replay and for the high scores. So I think I like it like this. The good thing is that you can change the colors anytime you want. So the Williams logo now, I like it in red. I will add a new palette first and call it Williams logo. Whoops. Click rename, click PAL. Just change the pink also into red, but into a brighter red, or maybe a kind of orange here to have a highlight. For now we can just leave it like this. And the presents, if I like to have this in red, for example, I can just remember what I did. And I remember that the game over scene was red. Just click game over palette, hit the PAL button, and done. I hope you could follow my steps, so let's move on to the next video and let's set the keyframes for our scenes. Alright, so after we cutted some scenes and colorized them, let's have a look at the keyframes. So I am not a programmer, so I am not able to explain all this process exactly. But what I can say is that you have to know that each single frame of the animation has its own unique hash, or more hashes on different planes. And you can see them over here. I want to show you again what I told in the beginning of this tutorial. We go to the Configuration tab, under Settings, we check this box, Create Bookmark After Cutting. And now we are really happy that we did so, because if we jump to the tab down here, we see all the bookmarks from each single scene we cutted before. So we click on the game over, and the timeline jumps exactly to the position where we cutted the scene before. Up here we see the two hashes for this frame and the preview image. And we click the first hash and select the scene we want the hash to be assigned to. So the game over scene, and click on color scene. And the program writes keyframe in front of the name, and I used to delete this to keep the overview. And now we see this game over scene is assigned to this hash. So now we're fine and we colorized our first scene. For the highest scores we can do it the same way. We select our dump and see the highest scores bookmark. We're on the right track. Select the hash, select the scene and hit color scene. I rename it and done. So for the grand champion scene there's a difference. The highest scores and the game over, it has a concrete hash because it's every time it looks the same. Here's no dynamic content within the scene. But the grand champion scene includes some dynamic content, and that is the score, because this score can change from time to time, and the hashes you see up here, we have 4, 2 more than before, and this is a result of the score. If we had a different score here, we would have different hashes as well. And that is the reason why we are not able to colorize this scene like we did before. First again we jump to the bookmark that we need, the GC. Oh, it's the wrong one, sorry. The GC. And we see that the hash, this concrete hash here, is the hash for this image, which includes the score, so we cannot just use this hash. If we would do this, the colorization would only work for the particular score. On the right we have the masks. That is what we need now. As soon as we check the demask box, the image turns all the way blue. This blue content is our mask, and you will see instead of more colors we have just 2 colors up here. The first one is the demask, if you like, and the second one is the mask. So if I draw here, you can see nothing happens, but if I draw with the first, I delete the mask, and if you check the preview image, it's black now, and now I draw a mask over half of the text, and the preview image changes like that. And now I have to show you an editor bug. Normally, if we select the hash now, there should be an M in front of the hash. So we have to uncheck and check the mask again, and now the M appears. It's really important that you have this M, otherwise you would run into problems later on. It is important that you use just static content for your masking. If your mask would contain some dynamic content, like the score for example, your colorization would not work. So make sure you just use the static content for those masks. So now we select our grand champion scene and click on color scene, and we see the mask is turning red. And that tells us that the mask is in use now, so we rename our keyframe here and we are done. So unlike the color mask, a mask is a requirement or a condition for a scene to be triggered. So every time this mask is realized, this scene will be triggered, the grand champion. And it does not matter what initials or what score will show up here. Every time it will be triggered, this color mask will be laid on top. So each initial or each score will have this color. So now for the high score scene, we have to check the image and see all this is dynamic content, and the only static content are these numbers. But if we click, okay, first we have to select the dump and jump to the bookmark, the high scores. And now if we check the mask, we see this mask we just used, the mask number 0. It just shows our dynamic content, and we don't want that. So we click on this arrow and we see now we can jump through several masks. It's up to 24. I think the developer's suggestion was to just use 10, but for me it was never possible, and for my colorizations I used all 24 masks, and it seems to work. But anyway, you should try to keep this as simple as possible. Now we use the mask number 1, and we can use the first color up here and uncheck this dynamic content. And we see the preview image. We have just the 1 and 2, and this is what we would like to trigger. So we check this hash. Now it works with this M. Sometimes you have to do it, sometimes not, with this uncheck and check. But it seems to work now. And we select the high score scene and click color scene. Rename it. You see this turned red, so this mask is in use now. And now I will show you that what I did before, that I did 2 high scores scenes here. This is not really necessary, because what I need is I need the bookmark now for high scores 2, but I don't need the high scores 2 scene because it's the same color mask than on high scores 1. But I need this 3 and 4 to be triggered. I can use the same mask like before and select not the high scores 2 but the high scores and click on color scene. Rename it. And now here we have our keyframes. If the 1 or 2 is there, it will trigger the high scores, and 3 and 4, it also triggers the high scores. So we don't need this anymore and can delete this scene, because the masks are the same. But of course you could keep it if you would like to colorize the 3 and 4 different. So the next one is the Mosh Multiball Champion. We select our dump, select the MMC to jump to the right position. Now this dynamic content is the initials and the score here. Can hit the mask and see that the first mask we did, it would perfectly fit to trigger this scene. So we select the mask, assign the MMC scene to it and color scene. Rename it. And done. So I will continue now with the next bookmark, MBC, hit the mask, see that it fits, select it, select the scene, MBC, and hit color scene. By the way, in that case I will keep all the single scenes, because maybe later I want to colorize the Monster Bash or the Monster Rock in a different color, so I keep the possibility to do so. And MRC and rename it. Same to the replay. Check the mask. Yeah, this should work. So edit the replay, keyframe, and the Williams logo. For this we can decide which mask we will use. I think this is just for this logo, so we can use this and choose the William logo. And last but not least, on the presents, because I showed it before, jump to it, hit the mask. And now I see this is a concrete hash because no dynamic content, so we can just use the normal hash for it. So I think for this part of the tutorial this is enough about color masks, and in the next video I am going to show you the difference between color mask mode and the replacement mode. Now, after we colorized some basic scenes using the color mask mode, I want to show you the replacement mode and how to use it. We are able to change our modes up here. Right now we see every scene has this green plus in front of the name, and that means this is a color mask scene. And as soon as we move to the drop-down menu here and click on replace, the scene has changed into a replacement scene. And now these colors up here, they're not combined anymore like in the color mask mode, but we can choose each color here and change it from our palette, and that offers more options to the colorization process. I click the green color, use the rectangle tool, and now it just painted green. So undo this. We can use the fill tool, for example. Click on here, and now we can colorize each letter in a different color, for example. Can choose different colors, single colors. You have really more options here. You can use the circle tool and draw new objects to the scene. In color mask mode, you just do a color layer over the original animation or frames. And in the replacement mode, you are totally free to change the whole scene. And by the way, with this method, I created the new custom mention animations for the Addams family table. So we can choose a color and pick the pen tool to draw lines. So we can really paint new pictures that are shown up during your gameplay. The editor also offers the possibility to copy and paste images from your clipboard to the editor. Steve showed this in one of his tutorials, but I never tried this, so I don't want to talk too much about this feature. But I want to show you that now, after we change the scene to a replace scene, we have a different symbol in front of the name, and it does not fit anymore to our keyframe here. So I will delete the keyframe and add a new one, and the symbol will change to the same. Now you see the same symbol in front of the name. I rename it, and we are done. Each time this keyframe will be triggered, it will trigger this image. Now I messed up this image to show you how it works, so I will roll back the changes for the next video. So I rolled back the changes, and I want to show you a more advanced scene that we try to cut and colorize using the two modes, the color mask mode and also the replacement mode. And for that purpose I already created this dump file from the gameplay, and I want to use the last part of this really long animation I have to find the right spot now. But I will just use the last part of it, because anyways, see, this animation will end here and this new animation will rise. Anyways, we will need a new palette for this animation, so I will cut it straight from that point. But it can also happen that on this table, after this bright image, that more animations will start after this one with the same dots here. So if we skip until here, where we can barely see the head, so we can skip a bit backward. And I think this is a good point, so I hit mark start and play the animation to find the end point of it. And the it's alive text that will appear now. As far as I know, this will never change, so we can include it in our scene. But just until the last image with the head. I'll skip backward, find it. Yeah, this is the last frame. And the next frame we want to trigger separately because it only includes the text. So I go one frame backward, hit mark end, and hit cut. And the scenes we cutted before were all one frame scenes. We can use the slider and drag and nothing happens because it's just one frame. But now, in this new scene, I will call it It's Alive. And if we now drag here, we see each and every single frame we just cut it until there. So now first I want to tell you some theory about this process that is really important to know. Normally we would now trigger this animation from the first frame and let it run to the end. But there are some tables or some animations on several tables that could be triggered in the middle of the animation, caused by your gameplay, for example. And if that happens, this animation won't be colorized in the gameplay, because the first hash we used for the trigger, it was skipped. So that would mean that we have to split our animation into single frames and trigger each single hash. You can see the hashes changing at the top. And you see we have different hashes for each frame. And this is a lot of work. I had to do this for the Toten and for the Adams family to make them work on the real table as well. And to minimize the issues. The developers are working on a function for that. It's the layered color mask. In the layered color mask mode, you have more hashes for each frame, and you are also able to add more masks for each layered color mask scene. So you have better possibilities to keep this as one animation, and it will be triggered frame by frame. We are already able to use this function, but it won't work as expected in-game yet. But as soon as the developers are able to fix this, I will leave a note here in this tutorial and maybe make a new one for this function. I am also looking forward to this point of time, because in that case I could fix my last issues for the Adams family table. But for now we have to work with what we got here, so we will work with the color mask and the replacement modes. And yeah, we can start to colorize this scene now, and maybe we have to split it into more single animations or single frames later on, but this we will see after we tested the colorization to see if our triggers are working right. And you will see that it will be a lot of work to test and fix and test and fix. You have to do this several times. I can promise you. Okay, so let's start. First I will skip through the animation until I reach the first clean image of the head. Each frame has an own delay value that determines how long the frame will be visible. In this case we have a delay of 438. This is a long delay and the frames before are really short, for example 15, 16. And that is really short, and that's why we won't see these frames as soon as the animation is played. So we only have to focus on those frames with a longer delay. Like here 78, for example. Most of the longer animations on several tables, I found out that each third frame is normally one with a longer delay. And in those cases, I copy the long delay frame to the frame before and after. So I have 3 frames with the same image. But I will show you this later when it comes to the replacement mode. First we will continue working with the color mask mode. Like every time we will create a new palette and I will go back to the first image I want to colorize. So this one, with the longest delay. So, until now, every time we just clicked on New for a new palette, but it's also possible to select a different palette we did before to keep the colors for the new palette. Well, we have different options here now. To choose just the game over now for an example and click New, and you see we are able to rename the new palette, but we kept the colors of the game over palette. So I will call this It's Alive and hit the rename and the PAL button. And now we have our own palette. It was just to show you. I don't need this red here, but I will change it into green instead. Maybe a bit warmer green. And now I will go darker with the same green, but just darker. And darker again. So we have the first palette with the same color but different brightness levels. And so we kept the 3D effect of the original animation. Most of the original animations are built like this, so it's easy to keep this 3D-ish effect. So I'll continue with the second palette by hitting Control and click on the color. And I will use some grayscale here to get a bit of silver look. Use this for these screws. So for the third palette I choose the color for his jacket. And I think it should be a kind of gray also, or bluish. And to make a difference between the color of the screws and the jacket, I will go with the blue here. Also from bright to dark. And draw a rectangle here. Well, there's not much difference to the screws. So I will raise the blue level a bit. And I see it's this color now, what is used. I think this is cool for now. So I use Control C to copy this color mask and skip forward one frame. The next frame is just 15, so I think it's not necessary to colorize this now. But I go to this. And now if I hit Control V, we see that the color mask won't fit anymore to this frame. So we have to do something different here. So I will try to use the next palette for this frame. Skip forward to the next with a delay of 78. And now I hit Control V again and see what's happening. Yeah, I wanna have to decide now if I like it or not. But for now, I could go with this. I will just correct this screws thing here. Maybe. Or maybe all these lightnings could be white. So this is how I process all the time. I have to check some colors and test it and see if I like it. Some people told me that I should compare my colors I choose with the colors from the color DMD, but I don't want to copy something and I want to choose my own colors. Anyway, this is no competition for me. But I'm really happy about the community feedbacks and hints from people who know the tables really well and know the design of the tables. And it also makes sense to have a closer look on the objects on the playfield or the backglass. So now on this frame we see the same color mask from before could be used. So I hit Ctrl C again for copy, skip one frame forward and Ctrl V. Same to the next frame, because it doesn't change much, so I can add this too, even if it's necessary or not because of the 16 delay, but it doesn't hurt to do so now. Same to here, 78. Same to this. Because it's not moving much, it doesn't matter if we also colorize more frames. The more the better, but some frames are simply not necessary to colorize. But I also went into issues before because one frame that I did not expect was triggered and that caused flickering during the animation. So it doesn't hurt if you colorize too much. Especially for me, as I said before, I don't know this table very good. So I'm not sure what is necessary and what not, so I will get rid of these squares to make it look better for any case. I think the bright green doesn't belong here. Okay, let's go to the next one. For that frame, I will again just draw this rectangle with the fourth color mask. Now this image, I could also again hit Ctrl V for paste and do some corrections here. I copy and paste and paste and paste. Now I see I missed two dots here. Alright. Now the head starts to move. And now you see it better. These transition images, which are looking really dirty. And it's just a 15 delay. So also this 16 delay we don't have to colorize now. But this is a more clear image, and you see the delay is 78 again. But now if I would paste my color mask, it would not fit to this frame anymore. So I go to Edit and select Paste Over and click and hold my mouse button. I can drag my color mask I just copied over this image, find the right spot, and as soon as I release the mouse button, it will stay on top. And now I'll be able to correct some dots here, and I'm fine. So I hit Ctrl C, skipping forward to this frame, and again hit the paste over until it fits. I think this is good for now. So you can see you are able to spend a lot of time. It depends on how detailed you would like to work with this, and of course how much patience you have. Again, Ctrl C for copy, just in case. And I think now it's not necessary to paste because we just have our screws here to colorize and can move forward. Now I will skip forward to the spot where he should open his eyes, because the rest I will keep in green right now. I for now decide to keep this green, it doesn't look bad for this part. And now I move to the last position of the eyes. There he has big eyes, good to colorize, so I will use the fourth palette now for the eyes. Maybe I could give the eyes a little separate color. And now we can choose what colors we would like to use. I think because this seems to be the outside of the eye, could be kind of red for maybe like this. And the yellow I will just paint white too. But here this area I don't like, but we will come later to that. So first I will keep this palette for the eyes. I think I will leave it like this for now. Maybe this. Or maybe this could be green. Okay. So now I go to the next frame with a big delay. and also add the colors for the eyes. Don't have to talk too much now, because you see what I'm doing. So now let's move on. Now the text will show up. So I think in this frame we're able to see the text. There's a delay of 94, so I will paint the eyes first. Sometimes I'm not sure how it looks better. I think this is too much. So I think that's okay. Now the text, I will use the gray again, the grayscale palette. Try to find the important lines for this frame. Yeah. So this is just the first frame. It's anyway, it's a little dirty. So I will leave it like this. Skip over to the next with a bigger delay. And I could also use the fill tool for those works sometimes to make it faster. But this, I think that's okay. So the eyes now again. Whoops, I need the rectangle tool again. Okay. Next frame with a big delay is this one. Now, the most animations to make this text visible, they keep a black outline so that the eyes themselves are not really visible anymore. We can just keep it simple here. And now again the text, we can read it better and skip over. I think we can read it better now during the animation. I think this is not necessary. And now I show you how I deal with these kind of chiral mask scenes here. I go back to the beginning. And this fade, I think I have to right now think about how I want to colorize these fading dots. And I think it was a bright image before, just before these frames. And so I will colorize this white. But maybe I use the gray scale here. Can now copy this mask, paste it until I want to have the greens. Okay, I think from here we can hardly see where the head is. Sometimes I just am able to guess and where it starts and ends. Yeah, and that's why we can do it this way now. It's really difficult, but that is why I started with this image. But now I know, yeah, this is kind of better because we have this white here. I will copy this frame and go back to the images before, and I paste it. And now you see we added the right colors to this transition. I think it's okay for that. I will paste this color mask over the rest of the frames. Now I corrected it, so I will copy this and go back and paste it. I used the wrong palette. I go back. Copy again. It's really a detailed work what I do now. It's up to you how detailed you plan to work with this editor. But I found out that for me, as soon as I find some things I don't like later on, I have to correct each scene. So I used to do it straight away, like now, to make it look good as possible with my possibilities I have here. Okay, now that is not necessary. So right now we see how it would fade in. I think it's okay. So I will correct the green dots on the top right. So I only have to correct this one frame. Copy this frame mask to the next ones. And each time the image changes, you can do small adjustments here. I work like this now because I cut the whole scene and I want to try first if it's enough to trigger the scene with one hash in the beginning. without splitting it into several scenes. And maybe it's enough for this table, we have to try it later. So paste again the last changes. And I think now this looks cool. Now we have the in-between frames here, and as you can see, this is a kind of transition to this image. Now I work like this. I copy this image into the clipboard with by hitting Ctrl and C. Skip one frame forward and paste the same mask. For that case, I see the rectangles are looking really ugly here. I will fix that. And this is because when I colorized this scene, the background was black, so I didn't care about where to drag the color mask. But sometimes it's better to really just colorize the dots you see. Then this won't happen. But okay. Fix that quick. Okay. Now I copied this frame color mask to the next one. Had to do some corrections here. And now I'll continue in the next frame. I pasted the color mask, but it doesn't look good. So I will use the second color mask palette here and draw a rectangle. So here. So I copied this again, copy to the next step. Skip one frames forward, copy this one, go one frame back and paste it. I see I have to correct something here as well. But normally, if I would work really clean in the beginning, this is not necessary to do anymore here. Anyway, it's just this 16 delay. You won't see it. So I just do this because I have this scene. It's a long animation. And as I said, I'm not so familiar with this table to know if I will need this particular frame later on. And also for my own preview for this animation, it makes sense to colorize it as well. I found out for me that it's better for me to first cut bigger scenes and colorize them and split them into the number of single frames or single sections that are needed to trigger them right. To do this later on is more comfortable, as you don't have to skip through the scenes all the time. So you can just skip forward and backward, and that works really faster. For this I again just draw a rectangle from the second palette of our palette. So as you can see, I try to post, I try to copy the main frame to the image, to the frame before and the frame after. Then I skip one frame, but in this case we already colorized this part. So for example, this position here, I copy this, skip one forward, paste it. Skip two forward, copy it, one backward, paste it, two forward, paste it. Two forward, copy, back, paste, forward, forward, paste, forward, forward, copy, back, paste, forward, forward, paste, forward, forward, copy, and so on. I hope you can follow this, but okay, here see I need this again. And this is just to make the animation look smoother. If we play it here, it's not really necessary to do it for the colorization during the gameplay. Yeah, by the way, you could also change the delay time here. You can increase it or decrease it, but I had problems with this, so I never touched this again. I said before that I will keep that in green, because I think it could look okay. So let's see how it looks. And yeah, until the eyes are opening, it looks okay. So I will continue with this copy and paste work again, including the frames with the smaller delay as well. Anyways, the eyes I will change later on to show you the replacement mode. So I won't be too correct with this now. Okay, now here maybe it would look nice if the eyes would be different. In that case, I copy this and paste it here as well. And here too. Every time it depends on how it looks and how you like it. Now I see I could also start to colorize the texture, because it's not a big deal now and it won't take long, so I will do it. Just to make it as correct as possible. So now the same, we copy this and paste it one forward, go two forward, copy this, paste it one backward, and also one forward. This one copy backward and forward, and this one copy also backward and forward. Now you see this is already green, but just the 16 delay you won't see it. But if you want to do this, to make this better, you just copy this mask and copy them back. You can also do this for the transition. This one. Now this looks crazy, but if you see it, if we will see it in as an animation, it will look okay. Okay, that should be enough for now. I copy this mask on top of this frame too. Yeah. So now I hit start to play the scene. And you can see what we just did. And now I want to show you how to switch the scene into a replacement scene and what kind of possibilities it will offer to us for the colorization process. So until now we only worked with the color mask mode for this animation scene, and now I want to show you the possibilities that the replacement mode offers to us. In that case, I would like to pimp the eyes to make them look better than the default ones. So if I change this scene now to a replacement scene, you see it worked because we have this symbol. I can now draw the eyes different. I will just try a bit. Use the circle tool, or maybe the fill tool. First. The pen tool. I don't want to take too much time on this now, but I want you to get an idea of what you can do. Oh, the wrong tool. I don't like that. I think this could work. No, that was too much. Yeah. And I think if we compare it now to this, I think it looks better. Can give him some also a reflection in the eyes. Okay, I will keep it like this now. But I see. Whoops, wrong color. Oh. Yeah. So here we go. A really good feature of the editor is that we can switch back to the color mask mode. It will give us a notification here. We can apply it by clicking change mode. And if I decide later on, I decide to change the color of the hairs, for example, I can go to this mode again and paint the color mark, so I do not have to click each each dot in replacement mode or use the fill tool. This way I can use the mask again and switch back to replacement mode. I see that these shadows here are missing on this side. I will try to create some shadows here. Okay, I will keep this for now. This is looking really ugly compared to this. So I will do it the same. So now I can show you a drawing tool, a next drawing tool, but in the last editor version it was kind of buggy, so I don't use this very often. But maybe it's fixed now, I'm not sure. I can mark this part and hit Ctrl C for copy. Switch back one frame and select the passed over. Put it here. I like that it moves a bit to the left. Ctrl C, one frame back and paste over. And now we have a small effect. Now, like I said, I could spend hours on that, but I think the only reason for that is that I have the patience to do so. You need a lot of patience, like you see, to colorize a table. I can copy this to the frame before and this frame. I think the eyes are not open, just a bit. Now I see that this could be green. Okay, I will copy this image to that frame. Oh, change back to the color mask mode. Use the green palette because I think it's just this, and go back to the replacement. And I want to copy this to this too, to the next frame. So this is our next frame with a big delay. So I will paint here. Just try my best to make this look clean, but it's not too easy sometimes. A lot of trying. Because he's really staring. I want to do it a bit more comic-like. Okay, for this tutorial I will keep it almost like this. Okay, check the next frame. Okay, and now I could try what's happening if I use the color mask again and click the fill tool to make the background white here, or use this palette. And now I copy this color mask, paste it to the next frame, and again, and again. Now you see it did just copy the color mask and not our changes from the eye. Because in the original animation the dots are different here. So we have to correct that in the replacement mode again. But from the background color it looks better. But now that we know how the animation will look like, I can try a trick. Because the background is changing until here where it's rarely visible anymore. Before, it's the background that changes. So I will copy this in the replacement mode now, paste it here, use the fill tool and add the different background. Like this. I copy this to the next, and I just give it a different background color here. And paste the one from before again. Now I can show you. Okay, so now I forgot to copy. I will now in the replacement mode I do the same as in the color mask mode. I copy this frame, move one frame backward and paste it, and go to the two backward to the frame before, copy this and copy it to the next frame. So we will have 2 frames, or we have 3 frames of the same image. So now let's check how it looks. And I recognized a missing frame. It's because that our new eyes now doesn't fit to this eyes. That's what is disturbing the animation for me. I will try to copy this part and click the paste over. And let's have a look if it's better now. Yes, it is. So I do the same for the second eye. I know that you can use the shortcuts as well, but I used to work like this. Yeah, I think it looks better. So I don't want this dirty frame now, I don't need it, because I am in the replacement mode. I copy this frame, to the next one. And I continue this way. Just copy the clean images over the dirty ones. And have a look, before you do this, have a look if it fits to the original animation. But normally because it's a replacement scene, you can do what you want here, and it will show up after it is triggered in-game. So let's check. I think it's just the blue what is disturbing. I think in the original animation there were more variations within these frames. I just changed the background, so the effect is a bit less, sadly. But maybe I tried to change it by adding some colors here, some reflections. Maybe same to here. So that doesn't look bad for the moment, and I hope you get some idea of how it works now. The combination between the color mask mode and the replacement mode is a really useful feature. So now we are able to set our keyframe for the scene. Go to the dump. We have our bookmark, it's alive. And now we could decide if we just use the hash or use a mask instead. But we don't need a mask for this scene, because we have all these dots that should be unique enough to trigger the scene right. So we choose the scene and click color scene. So we'll keep it like this for now, and in the next video I will show you what a palette switch does and how to set it. Now I want to explain shortly what a palette switch does. A palette switch is not assigned to a special scene. It's just a switch of the palette, like the name says. And we can... So we go to the attract mode and, for example, use this say no to drugs screen. And we only have to select the hash up here and click on palette. Now we see a different symbol here. It's a palette switch symbol, and it's called keyframe 13. We could rename it to palette something else. And now if this is selected, we can add a palette or add a new palette here, or just align some palette to this keyframe by hitting this palette button. But I find the preview not very useful, so I don't use this feature in my colorizations. So the last thing for this tutorial is to show you the problems with the credit dot. I mentioned this in the beginning of this tutorial. And this will happen as soon as the pinball startup test will recognize an error, like a lamp that does not work or something. And this dot will appear after the next start. It also appears in the visual pinball, in the virtual pinball. And maybe if you mess around with ball control and something, it could also happen. And I want to show you this example because on each table you will run into this problem and you have to deal with it. So after the text credits, there could be different dynamic content behind it. It could have 1 or 2 digits, it could also have the symbol for the half credit, and all these possibilities could have a dot behind or not. And also you have the free play mode. Depending on all this dynamic content here, the credit text itself will move slightly to the right or left. And for all these cases, we need a separate scene and a separate keyframe. Because if we want to colorize the scenes, we also have to take care of the position of the credits. So we have to cut this scene. So I hit mark start, mark end, and cut. I used to name these scenes like credits, press start, X dot. To remember, trust me, after you have a really long list, it's really hard to remember and how you named the scenes. So make sure that you name them in a way that you will find them back later too. So now for this scene, I will use the GC, and with that colors I will give it a new name. So I will click and add a new palette and call it credits. Rename it and add this palette to the scene. I want to change the credits to yellow, for example, and the press start should show up in green, but it was the wrong red. So now we have to trigger this scene. So we go back to the attract mode, and because we have this dynamic content here with this dot and this 3, we will need a mask, and these 2 masks we see we did before, we cannot use for this, so we need the next one. And I think this press start text, it will blink. So we use the rectangle tool to deselect this blinking content, and also enough space for different contents here. So now if this credits text would move to the left or right, it will be recognized with this mask. And so we can trigger the different scenes for it. So if we decide to use this mask now, we select the hash and see there is now M in front. We have to deselect and select again. See, the M is there. M2 for mask 2. And we select the scene and hit color scene. Now it turns red and is used for this keyframe. And this will, like I said before, just work with the credits and this dot. So you need a different dump to catch and cover all the different possibilities that this particular table will offer. Like I said before, the number of digits, the half credits, the free play mode, and dot and no dot. You see, these are a lot of scenes. And for each of these scenes, you will need a separate trigger with a color mask and a separate colorization scene. So if you have problems with certain colorization files and they don't work right on your system, you could check if you have this dot behind your credits and fix that problem. And maybe the colorization will work better, because the author did not cover every possibility for his colorization, but just a few. I hope this tutorial covered most of the important things. If I missed something or if you have some question, please use the comment section. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and could follow my steps. If you did so, please leave a like or subscribe to my channel. And feel free to use the comment section down below to give me some feedback. So thanks to the developers, thanks to Steve, Jörg aka Lucky One, and also Freezy for making all this possible for us. Thanks for watching and see you soon.